Hey guys, Jack here and welcome back to another video. We've had two really big games that have probably shaped the Premier League a bit more now, and obviously we're about halfway through and things are looking good for some clubs and some aren't looking as great, so let's jump into it. So the first game we're going to be looking at and the main game we're going to talk about is Manchester United beating Manchester City at Old Trafford. So as usual, Man City set up in their 4-3-3. So, and Rodri would be the sitter, and then Haaland, Foden and Mahrez were the wingers. De Bruyne kind of was able to drift around as much as he wanted, and Cancelo on the left, Walker on the right, and Akanji and Ake, who aren't their first choice centre backs, but obviously with Diaz out, he can't really do. You have to do what you can. While United, I think, set up quite defensively, and I think it was right too. They did set up in this kind of 4-2-3-1, but what they did is that Fred was the main was the box to box, and I think that's because he was sticking with Kevin De Bruyne the entire game, and I thought it was a brilliant performance by him. Well, you see, while he followed De Bruyne, Eriksen was able to drop in and basically be a conductor alongside Casemiro. So I would say it'd be more of a 4-3-3 as opposed to the 4-2-3-1 that's shown here. Rashford and Fernandes were on the wings, and then but they kind of would move, especially Fernandes. He kind of drift, while Martial, he looked injured, he looked tired, and understand why he came off. So first half, I thought United did very well defensively, set up very astute, and Malacia and Wan-Bissaka did very well. Like during the October fixture, Malacia was being targeted a lot, and I think that's because he was still young, he was still getting into the system. But because United have figured out what what exactly everyone needs to do, he did very well. And Mahrez and Foden, and even De Bruyne, whenever they went out to that wing, he dealt with them well. Obviously, there was a couple of times he got past, but it wasn't too discernible. It wasn't that bad. It was only happening a few occasions, which can happen when you're fit. For a 21, 22-year-old left back from the Eredivisie, come against Mahrez and De Bruyne, I think he did very well. And Wan-Bissaka, obviously with Dalot out, Ten Hag went with him, and he was great as well throughout the game. Got off very well, and he had a couple of good, dribbles, and I think he's grown in confidence as well. And I think it's good for Ten Hag to have that competition. In the first half, they nullified Haaland. What they did is they sat deep enough that if Man City decided to go for over the top, which I was surprised they didn't try as much, but I think Luke Shaw and Raphael Varane did very well to kind of nullify him. Shaw would have been more the proactive, kind of snuff out any dangers, but he was excellent. He was excellent, and then obviously, so they did very well in the first half, and it looked like Man United had a better chances in the first half because they were able to break very well. Second half, Man City came into it, and while they were putting pressure on the back line, they weren't really breaking. Luke Shaw was headering things out. Casemiro was doing very well as well to screen the back line, but then Jack Grealish came on for Foden, and it completely changed it for them because he was more inverted. He was going to drive at them, and he was causing them a bit of trouble on that side. And it wasn't until De Bruyne, who had 2 or 3 good crosses before the goal, was drifting out. Would beat Malacia and Fred, and then for his goal, he chipped it across here, and I think Wan-Bissaka was trying to mark 2 of them at once, but credit to Grealish, good light run, header it into the goal, and considering the amount of stick he got when he came on, I think it was fair for him to get to have that moment for himself. But then the moment came where I think it was a through ball by Casemiro for it was for Rashford. By the way, he had a great game. He was instrumental in change. He basically would switch with Fernandes and even Anthony. They would rotate, and he just showed versatility that we've never seen in the last couple of years. But anyway, ball comes through, and I can see why it was I know why Manchester City, Akanji, Guardiola were very upset with what the end game, how it ended. That Rashford technically should have been called off because Akanji may not have gone for it and Ederson might have came out for it. But in laws of the game, he didn't directly interfere with the play, and Fernandes, incredibly smart to recognize that, said to Rashford, "No, I got this," and took the ball, shot, and after VAR, it was deemed a goal. And I think through the laws of the game, it was a goal. Then I think like 3 or 4 minutes later, Garnacho comes on and he was excellent. I think just making it difficult for Kyle Walker and Akanji, just because they're a bit more tired, that he's able to dribble and cut back in and went back out, played it across for Rashford to score, and I think his 7th game in a row, and I think one more game and he beats the record for Manchester United of consecutive games. And after that, Man City tried to push up a bit more, but they were completely nullified. Their forward line was nullified any time they tried to put the ball in. Casemiro, Varane, and Luke Shaw were just headering it away. And credit to United, they came back into it, and this is huge for them, going up to 2nd in the table, and they deserved it. And I was saying in the last video, they might be in for a title race, but it's still early for me anyway to kind of definitively say that. I want to wait until kind of towards maybe March to kind of say yes or no. But anyway, that's it for this game. Let's jump through the rest of them. So we're going to be looking through the rest of these games. I'm going to try to fly through them as much as I can. Villa versus Leeds. I think Villa were fortunate to come out with a win. Leeds, I think what they did was just let Aston Villa just come onto them, and they got their goals, and Leeds just didn't have enough to come back into it. They left themselves a bit too much to do too late. I thought Wilfred Gnonto, I want to say this right now, what a baller. He was unbelievable for Leeds, and I felt really bad for him because he was getting kicked to bits. I think Ashley Young has gone back to Watford's academy, just how much he rinsed him. But anyway, like, they had to double and triple team on him because they couldn't handle him. And I think Leeds really need to figure out how to get more out of their attack and just set up more defensively and just be great, perform the entire game as opposed to 20 and 30 minutes, like sections, because they haven't done that properly. But yeah, I fair juice to Villa. They grind out the win. Martinez with a couple of great saves, and yeah, they got their win at home. Wolves versus West Ham. Wolves fans would be ecstatic that they came out with a win. West Ham had their chances, but they didn't look great, and it's mad and like there's no kind of rumors about Moyes losing his job, and I think he's earned that time. But you wonder when they're gonna maybe pull the plug on him. It'll be interesting to see if they even do. Next is Forest versus Leicester. Steve Cooper set them up very well. Obviously, Brennan Johnson just was key to that. Just they brought this, they funneled the ball to him, and he was just able to run at their relatively high line. Henderson made a couple of good saves, and Forest's defense was solid throughout. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Henderson. There's not really much news on how long his injury is going to be, but they really need him for their matches coming up. Next was a bit of a shock. I did say that Brighton would come out with the win, but I didn't think it was going to be as comprehensive. Just 3-0 Brighton. Liverpool just didn't look like they were there, and Brighton just played through them, especially funneling the ball out to the wings with the likes of Matoma, and Ferguson was drifting out there. Solly March looking like prime Robin at this stage, and Liverpool just need to figure out what's wrong. And it's mad to think that they're struggling as much as they are, but credit to Brighton, they've been great. And even with the issues with Trossard's agent basically saying he wants to leave, De Zerbi has had, it looks good for just De Zerbi, because if they completely got trounced or they didn't have anything in attack, fingers we point at him, but he's done very well for that. And Brighton, I think, have scored 3 goals in their last 6 games or something. So they've, considering Graham Potter has struggled for goals when he was there, before, it looks like De Zerbi has found the missing piece. Next is Everton, Southampton, and Southampton, like, Ward-Prowse just needs to figure out, like, I don't get how someone's penalty record is almost the same as their free kick record. It's almost like Lionel Messi in that kind of consistency. That's 16 goals for Ward-Prowse from set pieces. Great free kick, and he got another goal as well for his troubles. Everton obviously went up, but they kind of lost it. And you heard, and like, the boos coming from that game were ridiculous. And I think Lampard is going to be suffer the consequence of that, because the owner, Farhad Moshiri, was not, he wasn't. He backed him, and he'll more than likely just see him go. Even though it's been, like, everything's been a mess, and they need to survive because of their moving stadium, and the financial ramifications of that stadium build has been ridiculous. So they need to pick up their form, and I think the fans need to rally behind them just like they did last season. Next is Brentford, Bournemouth. Brentford just were solid throughout. They had a couple of Bournemouth had a couple of chances, but Brentford just did what they needed to do. Chelsea versus Palace. Badiashile, from what I've read, did excellent. He was unbelievable for them, apparently. Thiago Silva, ageless as usual, and Kepa, when I saw the highlights, made 2 or 3 very good saves. And I think for them, he needs to show those performances more, because if he has similar performances to what he did in the Fulham and Man City games, he won't be deemed their number one, for the future. They're going to look for someone else, and maybe Gaga Slonina will be that in the future, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. Palace had their chances, but they had to rely on Guaita to bail them out a few times. And I think the thing is, I always find Palace being an entertaining watch, but they haven't scored enough goals, and I think they need to kind of figure out exactly how to do that. With Elise and Eze, they have the capabilities of creating, they just need people to finish. Next is Fulham, Newcastle. Interesting moment with the Mitrovic penalty, but them the rules. And it took an 89th minute goal from Alexander Isak to get them the victory. But I think in the end they deserved the win. Leno made a few good saves, and Wilson was mobile, St. Maximin was mobile, and I just think that they needed to. They look good to get the win, and credit to them. Again, solid defensively. And lastly, the big game. One of the big games of the weekend was Tottenham versus Arsenal, and I watched the game, and it was fairly typical. I think it was what I probably expected in terms of how it was going to perform, of Arsenal having dominated the first half, Spurs being kind of lackadaisical, but then coming into the second half. And honestly, I thought it was going to be a draw, because I thought that would be the case. But Arsenal looked good defensively. They showed resilience that, while it was tense for them, I think the combination of their back line playing well and Ramsdale making 2 or 3 brilliant saves was key to them getting this victory and coming out with a clean sheet. Obviously the first goal was near post, and I think Lloris just wasn't set, and his hand movement was pretty slow, and that's why he conceded kind of a very weak goal in his near post. And then the second one, a range shot, and while people argue that he probably could have done more, it's still a good finish by Odegaard. And I just want to say that Arsenal they look immense, and they're riding a wave, and Arteta he's loving it, and I think and I hope for them that Could they? They could. And I like I've mates who are Arsenal fans, and they don't know how to feel because they're really excited about this, but the ones I know, they're pessimistic enough to just relax a bit in this situation. I just want to say to the fan who went on the billboard at the end of the game and kicked at Ramsdale, pathetic, absolutely pathetic. I mean, sure, you know, the fact that you decided to attack a young lad because his kind of shtick is being a wind-up merchant. The fact that you couldn't be a man enough to kind of like, you have to be so petty, as if trying to kick him as if he's a bottle on the ground when you're outside. Like, ridiculous. I hope he's banned from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, because that kind of carry on shouldn't be allowed. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, please give it a like, subscribe. I'll have a video up either tomorrow or Wednesday regarding the halftime Premier League roundup, just to give you my take on best teams, worst teams, best players, worst players, that kind of stuff. So thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care.